Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. Got a jam-packed show for you as always. We're going to talk about, as I go through my list of stuff here, I used to post my list of stuff on the blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. Then I kind of forgot. And I still post great stuff there. You should be going to check that out. But my list of stuff today includes who's going to make an impact in some of these games this weekend. We'll talk about that. We got to talk about Marcus Freeman a little bit as that gentleman takes over at Notre Dame. We'll have a look at some of the coaching stuff that is going on out there. And I got to start with this. It's absolutely hilarious. When your team needs a coach, everybody and their brother starts posting things. I mean, it really, really is funny. To give you kind of an example, the big talk is that Brent Venables was supposed to be going to Oklahoma. They were going to announce last night at the basketball game that was their new head coach. Then it was, it's been delayed a little bit. Now, these are reports coming out of folks in Oklahoma, okay? Then it was, Dabo Sweeney's going, and then Brent Venables is coming with him. Basically, what I'm saying to you is none of these people know anything. That's just the way that it is. None of these people know anything. And until you actually get something that's from someone that is viable, like not someone on Twitter that's got 25 followers, which I know followers isn't really the best way to judge folks, but it's just hilarious, the stuff that you read. It really, really is insane. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. We will take your calls in just a moment. So, yeah, it's silly. That's all I can actually say about that. Is it's just So there's that. We'll take your calls on some of the coaching moves. 803-978-1832. Who's going to Oklahoma? You know, I'm wondering how that's gonna work out. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. I don't think we'll get a decision on that until after the conference championship games on Saturday. So we'll see how that works out. Anyway, we're taking your calls on the coaching situation. What do you think's going to happen? I still want some sounding off from the Gamecock fans about their offensive coordinator, because you can definitely make two sides to the argument. They really have the players to implement the system that he's got. You can also make the argument that they look like silliness this year. He shouldn't get another opportunity. This is why Shane Beamer gets paid the big bucks there. He's got to figure out who's going to take control of that offense and then go from there. So that's what be one of the big decisions that when you're that head coach, man, you've got to make all those decisions, but this is one of the biggest ones. Who's going to run your offense? Who's going to run your defense? Coach White's doing a good job, I think, with the defense. My buddy Teddy Hefner called me out for that the other night on the fifth quarter postgame show, sent me a text message and said, hey, we love your show, but I don't think the defense was that good. Well, that good compared to what? I think that they were out on the field and exposed a lot because the offense for South Carolina was really not up to par. If you get a defense that's actually rested, they may have been a little bit better. 803-978-1832. Brandon says the South Carolina offense looked like crap in most games this year. Yeah, you can make that argument too. There's quarterbacks that have been in the transfer portal. We'll see if the Gamecocks are going to go in that route and try to grab somebody, or they're going to try to mold Brown and Doty. We'll see. All right. 803-978-1832. Let's go out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, I wanted to ask you what you thought this could be possibly the worst coaching move ever made, and that is Clark Lee taking the Vanderbilt job and leaving Notre Dame as the defensive coordinator when he would have been next in line to be the head coach at Notre Dame. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know the inside of how that would have went, but I can follow what you're saying. Clark Lee was well thought of, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, he's gone. But Marcus Freeman was someone that has really, really shot up the charts there. And I mean, there are a lot of folks that like Mr. Freeman. He's not coaching at Notre Dame, he's going to be coaching somewhere else. And the whole adage of, oh yeah, Brian Kelly was going to take him down to LSU. When I read that, I was like, not to be disrespectful to LSU, but why would he follow Brian Kelly when he could probably get a head coaching job somewhere else? So, yeah. And Clark Lee, I mean, I think he just wanted a head coaching job. I mean, I really, really do. So, and of course, he's Vanderbilt alumni, right? So he went back to his alumni where he went to school. So maybe there's that too.
True.
Man. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Rob.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. Yeah, it's fun to connect the dots with all that. If you remember, at one point, Billy Napier was the offensive coordinator for Clemson. Now he's the head coach at Florida. So there's that. Alan says Vandy pays more than Notre Dame. I don't know. Notre Dame's, they're both private schools, right? So you can't really get into what they pay. So interesting stuff there. With that's an interesting way to look at it. It really is. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. If you'd like to join us here on the rundown this afternoon as we discuss that, we're going to look at some of the impact players for the SEC championship game and the ACC championship game, and some of the other games too. Tomorrow we got the Pac-12 championship game on a Friday. Why don't we start with that? When you look at the Pac-12 championship game, the Oregon's already kind of got popped, right? Earlier in the season by Utah. That's kind of a cool matchup. I think that Oregon's going to have to figure out some stuff on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe Sewell, I think is how they pronounce his name, the sophomore there. He's going to have to come through and come up with a big game for them. For Utah, they're going to lean, I think, on Mike Tafoa, who is their veteran defensive end. He leads the Pac-12 with 9.5 sacks for the year and 57 pressures on the season. So look for those two to get into the mix tomorrow for the Pac-12 championship. Randall asked, who do I have winning the SEC West next season? Man, I don't know. The easy answer is to go with Alabama because Alabama generally wins it every year anyway. I think that I have to look at my bookcase of accountability. I think I had Alabama winning the West and Georgia winning the East. In fact, we can have Rip Rob Thursday. I think I had Mizzou finishing second in the East. And I had Kentucky finishing like way beneath Mizzou. Mizzou kind of screwed me over this season, to be honest with you. I thought they were going to be a lot better. I thought that Eli Drinkowitz was going to mentor young Connor Bazelak, and they were going to be a lot better team, and they weren't. They weren't. That's why we keep the bookcase of accountability, because it's humbling. It really is. I keep certain callers have their own little spot there on the bookcase of accountability. Hollywood's got his spot where he talked about Florida was going to roll every single team that they played. And I'm not mocking Hollywood, but that's pretty much what he said. Then I think that what was it? Began Negan had some stuff on there too. He was right. I think he was right probably 30% of the time. So there's that. Jimmy says, I think you screwed them with your pick. You might be right. Jay says we rip Rob every day. That's fine. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I don't run and cry to people when people mock me. I don't do that. I know some people that do, which is kind of funny. Not me, though. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832 if you want to join us on the show. Let's go out to the phones. And welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, and I have to go with Alabama winning the West side next year because people forget Alabama is an extremely young football team, and they just won the national championship last year, lost a Heisman Trophy receiver, lost a 4 or 5 year start, well, not starter, but he's been on the team for 4 or 5 years, and Matt Jones, he's lighting it up with the quarterback they got there this year is a true sophomore. So they're only lost one game, and they're in the SEC championship game with that young team. I think they only brought back one returning starter from the offensive line from last year. So if you're going to get Bama this year, this is the year I got to go with Georgia, because if they don't get it this year and get Bama this year, when are they going to do it?
I completely agree with you on that. Hey, man, thanks for joining the show. I appreciate it. All right, there you go. He brings up a valid point. This is a very young Alabama team, and that's why I think I said this earlier this week. Georgia, this is your year. The seas have parted. You played an SEC least schedule. And I know they get mad when you say that, but the leaves have parted for you, man. The seas parted, whatever the term you want to use. Ohio State lost their game. They're not going to be there. I'm still not buying Michigan. I think if you had to tell me, hey, Rob, pick a team that could beat Georgia, it's the team they're going to play this weekend. If you said, hey, what team would you bet money on that could beat them? I would probably go with Alabama, simply because of Nick Saban. The rest of them, not so much. Just saying. I think when you step back and look at it, Alabama's going to be a force next season because all those guys are going to get a year older. All those guys are going to get a year older. 803-978-1832. 803-978-1832. That's the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Of course, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. You can also follow the show on Twitter. I was looking at the schedules for both Alabama and Georgia that they played. And if we go by the CFP rankings, Alabama's played, let's see here. They played number 8. And I'm going through the rest of the list here. Number 8, number 22, and number 25. Georgia has played, heading into that game, Georgia has played number 20 and 1, and they played number 22 and 23. So they had essentially the same number of ranked teams as far as the CFP is right now. But you still have that adage where folks say, hey, and I've heard this a lot, who did Georgia play? In the end, their schedule, when you really stop and look at it, there are teams that are in the bottom of the top 25 that weren't there last week, some teams that moved up, and that kind of makes their schedule look a little more daunting than it is. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have some calls for you here on the Rundown. You can call in. We can talk about the SEC championship game coming up this weekend. And if you want to look ahead to next weekend, we can do that too. More of the Rundown when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. No, Randall, I don't think Clemson would have been in the playoff if they would have beaten Georgia. You could talk about leaves parting. You've heard of tea leaves, right? Stupid. Caden's dumb. Tea leaves can part and move. Sorry. Yeah, Clemson had major issues this year, and they couldn't throw the ball. So there's that. Wide receivers were injured or just didn't play, and they didn't have a good wide receiving core. The offensive line, when they lost Bokhorst, it was kind of downhill from there. So tea leaves, go Google it, Caden. I know you're a youngin'. Go Google it. Tea leaves. Check it out. Tea leaves can part. Yeah. If Clemson would have beat Georgia, I still think somebody else would have got him. The Clemson defense wasn't bad this season, even though they lost Brzee. Didn't play a lot without Tyler Davis too. They weren't bad. They just offensively they were terrible. They basically won. The winning streak they're on is the offensive coordinator, Tony Elliott, said, you know what we can do? We can just line up and run and hope they stop us. So, yeah, I think Anderson's a good player. I don't know about Uyunglele transferring. His dad tweeted out that he wasn't going anywhere, so there's that. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Podcast up at 5 o'clock today. You can obviously join us on the phones at 803-978-1832. We've got folks in the chat room talking about Brandon had an interesting question. Would Clemson have made the playoff if they would have beaten Georgia at the beginning of the season? No. If they would have, look, the Bulldog offense didn't score a touchdown on Clemson. Okay. They were the only team that hung with Georgia, in my opinion. But when it came back down to it, the Clemson offense was not the Clemson offense of old. And yeah, that game was important at the beginning of the season. But even if Clemson would have gotten the pick six instead of giving up the pick six, I still think that Clemson would have faced issues throughout the season and would have dropped a game to someone. And look, they lost to North Carolina State, who is a pretty good football team, in 4 overtimes, whatever it was, up there at North Carolina State. And they lost to a Pitt team that's got a dark horse Heisman candidate as their quarterback on the road at Pitt. Now, I'm not making excuses for Clemson because in reality, on paper, they were a better team. If you just looked at them from this is Team X, this is Team Y, you're going to go with Team X, which would be Clemson. But the offensive side of the ball hampered the Tigers all season. All season. And I assure you that Coach Sweeney knows that, and they're going to have to figure something out. You look at the game against South Carolina. Uiagalelei was 9 for 19 for 99 yards with an interception. That's not really the answer. It's not really the answer. And there are things that contribute to that. Losing Bokhorst, their guard, their all-conference guard for the season, that kind of can hinder you a little bit with the offensive line. You can also say that the wide receiver core, just look at the wide receivers that are out there right now. Not the same guys who were playing at the beginning of the season. Justin Ross is out with the foot injury. Latson, Nagata. I mean, they've got a slew of folks on that offensive side of the ball that just didn't have the kind of season that they were expecting. Back out to the phones we go, 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. And welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob. I'm talking about Clemson's struggles. Do you think that leads back to some of the recruiting that Sweeney's sort of not done, not offering enough players, kind of having to take what he had to take? Because last year, this past year.
Let's verify that for a second. They had consistent top 10 recruiting classes. The problem with Dabo Sweeney's recruiting is that they haven't recruited, other than Tristan Lee last year, they haven't really gotten the big, and the young man that was supposed to, Jackson Carman. Other than those two, it's not like they're getting maulers on the offensive line. They're not getting guys that can line up and just beat the snot out of somebody there and are going to be drafted in the first round type players on the offensive line. So you can throw that shot out there that maybe they need to attract better guys in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball. But as far as the recruiting goes, it's kind of hard to question against it with the track record that Dabo Sweeney has. If they weren't winning games, you think he's gotten lucky?
Kind of gotten lucky.
Okay.
I think he got lucky. He wanted Jordan Birch over Miles Murphy. How did that turn out for him? Turned out pretty good for him.
Yeah.
He wanted Justin Flo over Trenton Simpson. How did that turn out for him?
Yeah.
I mean, he's gotten lucky, but I mean, those just two guys. I mean, he fell butt backwards into Travis Etienne because LSU didn't offer him. He didn't offer him early. He offered him. He offered him late. But I think the thing that really hurt this team this year is they didn't have an Amari Rogers type player in the slot. They had only guys that could play on the outside, and that's recruiting.
Yeah, well, but in fairness, though, the guys that they've had to play that slot, I mean, Hunter Renfro's making big plays for the Raiders. Amari Rogers was doing good stuff there for the Packers. I think he's injured now, but before him, I mean, they had I can't remember his name, but I mean they've always had that.
He plays for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they've always had
that slot guy.
Yeah,
not this year.
Yep, I agree with you, but I think their offensive struggles come down to they don't have the big maulers on the line, and the wide receiving core this year was just, I mean, they're running around with the WRU sweat or t-shirts on. You see those, and you're like, really? Okay.
Yeah, because he can't sign the wide receiver that he wanted. North Carolina took him this year.
Right.
His priority defensive tackle, North Carolina took him this year.
Right. Well,
I mean, there's just battles that he's now losing. because he's not offering. I mean, the kid from South Carolina, Irmo, should have had an offer, last year. And now you're going to run up to him at the last minute and say, "Hey, we really want you now." Do you think he's going to buy it? I don't know.
He might.
But if they don't get him, they're not going to have a guy to play slot next year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's recruiting. I mean, and he's losing, 4 linebackers, and he's got 2 committed so far. I mean, he should have known that this class was going to be bigger than a 15, 16-person class. He should have known that.
Well, he did say that he was going to sign 20 players, between 17 to 20 players this class. So maybe they've got a couple of other, well, maybe they've got a couple of irons in the fire that we don't know about,
Well, the guy last year that was the big surprise was Tristan Lee. Everybody had him going to Oklahoma.
Right.
And Dabo pulled him to Clemson, but I mean, we didn't see him on the field this year. We saw Marcus Tate. That we saw, another freshman.
Yeah, well, but Lee got to play a little bit this season. He was out there for a little bit. He didn't play as much as people thought he was going to, but yeah, he was out there.
But I just think that they need to cast a little wider net because there's more competition around.
Yeah, if you look
especially
at
Georgia. I mean, Georgia's getting who they want.
Well, Georgia does. I mean, that's why they're number 1 in the country as far as their recruiting goes. But if you look at this year's class, though, number 1, of course, is a quarterback, and then they've got 3 defensive backs, and then an edge rusher after that as far as their top guys. Very heavy on the cornerback. Some good
players, but they're just, right now they're sitting at, 13, 14 commits.
Right, 14
and,
commits.
And when is the early signing date?
In 13 days.
13 days. So, I mean, you got to get to work.
Yeah, well, but a lot of guys will be announcing their commitments. I think, I tell you what, I'd bet you a nice cold beverage they're going to get at least 17 recruits. I believe that. I believe they've got some silent commits, they call them, that are going to be in the mix there for them. So,
but don't you think that there's somebody in the protocol that they could use, that could come in and be a solid number 2 guy?
That's a completely different story. If we're talking about going to the transfer portal, Dabo Swinney's got to swallow his pride and go do it. You can't just say, "Oh, we're only going to take just these Clemson guys," because then you sound like you're Les Miles and the world is passing you by. And the way college football is now, remember, Ed Orgeron won a national title less than 2 years ago. Now he's sitting at his condo in Florida. Things can go past you really quick if you don't do things and evolve, because evolving is the big deal here. You got to be able to do that.
Well, I think Ed Orgeron was a little over his head with the job that he had. I mean, they kind of got stuck with Ed Orgeron when the other coach kind of turned them down there at the last minute. But
it worked out for them. They won a national title.
Got a national title, and maybe it'll work out for USC with Lincoln Riley. I mean, they're going to be paying him, boatloads of money, and they're expecting him to win 1. So
yeah, we'll see how that
it's
works
just
out.
gotten crazy with these salaries.
Yeah.
I just don't know how much longer, schools can continue to pay out all this dead money that they're paying out.
Yeah, well, I wish it could be like Jerry Sloan when he was with the Utah Jazz, where he had a 1-year contract. He'd go up and make the deal with management. It was just him and the owner. They'd shake hands, and that would be it. But they don't want to do that. They want, I use the Will Muschamp effect, where he's taken buyouts in the past 5 seasons from 2 different SEC East programs, and he's coaching at another. It's robbery is what that is.
Yeah. I mean, you had Steve Spurrier who left money at South Carolina. No, keep it.
That's true.
Just out. But it's not like that anymore.
No.
They want every dime of it now.
Yep.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Hey, about the state playoffs this year, who do you got? Do you think South Point?
I like Dutch Fork.
Dutch
Fork and Gaffney. I'm going to take Dutch Fork. And who's South Point got?
South Point just beat Greenville. I don't really know who they play. No, South Point plays Buford.
Yeah, Buford is strong. Buford's strong.
First state championship game they've been in.
I like South Point though. Give me Gaffney and not Gaffney. Give me Dutch Fork and South Point to win.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, buddy. Have a great day. 803-978-1832. Quick break. We come back. We'll have more for you here on the Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Yeah, Daniel's going to smoke Camden, Brandon. Caden, you should just calm down, dude. Georgia hasn't won jack garbage yet. Sit over there and have your wet dreams, man. But y'all ain't won nothing yet. Get out of here with that nonsense. Till y'all win, you should sit there with your hat in your hand. Recruiting national titles still don't mean anything. Remember that. And Clemson's your biggest win on the season. Remember that too. Take that and smoke it. That's a good point. I wonder if Alabama's going to do like pods on each side of the line where they'll overload the right side or the left side and basically have their quarterback throw 4 and 5 yard outs to kind of offset the fact that they can't run the ball. Dutch Fork's won like 64 straight games. They really have. Yes, everything I said was true. Georgia hasn't won anything. They have not won anything. Your biggest win is Clemson. Look at the CFP rankings. I know numbers are hard for you. And make sure that you don't lose to Alabama this weekend because I know you probably won't show up on Monday if that happens. Because I will laugh at you until the end of time. If you can't, with that roster, beat this Alabama team that has its flaws, I don't want to hear one word out of you. Don't want to hear one word out of you. You're a fake fan too, Caden. Fake as hell. Plastic fan. I can't read my own handwriting sometimes. That's sad. You know what? You've been running your mouth to me for 4 months now. And I finally acknowledge you because you obviously did not get enough love as a child. So I'm giving you a little pat on the head like a big brother. And you finally get someone that hits you back. You're worse than Uncle Lou, man. Dish it out, but you can't take it. You tell Uncle Lou I said that too. He's got my number if he wants to call me, but he's scared to death to do that too. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to call. If you'd like to join me here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Some coaching notes. ECU, their head coach, Mike Houston, they've agreed to a contract through 2026. They're bowl eligible for the first time since 2014. I mentioned Colorado State earlier. They've parted ways with Steve Adazio. He is 4-12 in 2 seasons. LSU is going, Notre Dame is going to stay. Their offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, has decided he is going to stay with the Irish. Out to the phones we go. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Big Barney Ross here.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Say, money schmoney. Kentucky just set the gold standard on how to treat a coach.
Yeah, you set the gold standard on how to treat players for the basketball team too. So,
hey, one hand washes the other. But what Will Muschamp did was genius. I mean, that's some used car salesman tactic there. No, we don't do that in Kentucky. Now we're gonna get you a new facility, extension, and we're gonna put the money where it actually needs to go.
Well,
to help.
Well, let me ask you
University.
something. You know, Kentucky's going to finish second in the SEC East this year. Are you guys paying Will Muschamp for basically killing two SEC East programs? So you only had to beat two others to finish second?
Well, I know it's embarrassing. You know, we lost to Georgia for the championship for the SEC East. I mean, you know, it is what it is. If we'd won that, you know, we'd probably beaten Alabama for the title, but we didn't. So now Georgia's got the run of the mill there. They're going to just destroy Alabama. And but you know, like I'm saying, these universities generate so much revenue. Pay the guy in Tennessee. You know what I mean? Why would you do that? And all these coaches coming together. I think what Mark Stoops did was pretty brilliant, really. And the way Kentucky did that, you know, they put the money back in the university by building them the facility you wanted and, you know, extended the contract. But I'll get off and listen to what you have to say about all this money that everybody talks about. You know, that's almost as crazy as saying, you think they'll let Kentucky in with 3 losses? No. Put the money where you need it. And these coaches need to stop gaming, what I'd call gaming university. Like Bobby Petrino was pretty good at that. I mean, but it is what it is. Big Barney Ross, I'm out of here.
All right, buddy. Have a great day. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, this is Bob, your actual Missouri fan, calling in. Wanted to ask you a quick question, your thoughts on college football playoff.
Sure.
What happens this weekend if Georgia loses, Michigan loses, Cincinnati loses, and Oklahoma State loses? What does the college football playoff, what is the seeding then? Who are the teams that are in and out?
If I had to pick, you said, let me make sure I've got it right. Georgia loses, Oklahoma State loses, Michigan loses. Well,
and Cincinnati loses.
And Cincinnati loses. Well, what should happen is Alabama should be in at number 1. After that, you should probably go with, I guess you got to go with Notre Dame, being that they have 1 loss. I'm in the camp of, and it makes a lot of folks angry when I say this. If you don't win your conference title, you shouldn't be in the college football playoff. I'll hang on that until the end of time. If you're not the best team in your conference, how can you be the best team in the country? I don't buy that at all. So now everybody and their brother, the SEC apologists, will be out there. Well, Georgia's in. They can lose by 78 points to Alabama, and they're still in. And they'll say that with a straight face and expect you to believe it, and it's just silly. But you should put Alabama and then Notre Dame, and then after that, who's your best 1-loss team after that? I mean, there's so many things that you look at and you're like, man, I don't know. I honestly wouldn't know which way to go after that. So that's why the idea for expansion is kind of, man, do we really need more than 4 when you really look at it from this perspective? So,
we don't need more than 4 because everybody says, because, you know, if you put in 8, the 9th team's going to say, well, why weren't we? But at any rate, the way college football is college football has the greatest regular season of any sport, bar none. Every game matters. They start expanding the playoffs. Next thing you know, we're going to have an NCAA tournament, and the regular season is just going to be nothing but seeding. But you know, that's off on a tangent. But I would figure if those teams lose that I thought that lose, I think that it's going to be Alabama. I think Georgia still gets in. Then it's going to be Notre Dame, and shocker, maybe Ohio State.
Well, that's what the rankings would say.
Yeah, exactly. So that would be, but I know, and I would like to see all those teams lose because I love chaos in the last week because it makes things fun.
Yeah, I like what I like is these coaches coming out and having to say, well, we lost, but we deserve to still be there even though we lost. Those are the fun ones, especially the ones, oh, we're the best team ever, blah, blah, blah. But then we lost, but we still deserve to be there. Those are the fun ones.
You are right. Yeah. So, well, that's all I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then maybe that'll stimulate some more conversation on this.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Rob. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, there you go. I should have told him that his team screwed me over because I had Mizzou pick to finish second in the East. What a mess, man. I'm not looking forward to Bookcase of Accountability Day, which is I normally have it during the Christmas week. We'll see how that goes. And back out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, this is the Biscuit.
Hey, Biscuit, what's up?
Listen, under the scenario you guys were describing, then everyone would have lost.
That's true.
You're saying, oh, just because you lost, you're out. Everyone lost that.
Right, but you're missing my entire point. If you don't win your conference title, you shouldn't be in the college football playoff.
Nonsense. A conference title game is another data point. If you get a ribbon,
then why play them at all?
That's not.
Hold up, why play them at all? Why don't we just let the conferences decide? Let them do like they did last year with Ohio State. Even though who was the team that won more games in their division than Ohio State? Why don't we just let every conference just decide? You know what? We think this team is the best, so that's the team that we want you to consider for the college football playoff.
That's a completely different argument.
That is not a completely different argument, sir. You said it's a data point. It's a data point that you lost. You don't belong in if you don't win your conference. I don't see why that's not a great data point.
12-0. You can go 12-0. You can go 12-0 and lose a close game in your conference championship game, and at 12-1 you don't go, but some 9-3 team from the ACC.
I never said that. I never said a 9-3 team.
But
if you go 12-1,
based on what you're saying, that's what would happen.
No, sir, you're mistaken. If you go 12-1, you don't deserve to be in over a one-loss conference champion from a Power 5 conference. Sorry.
That's nonsense. There's too many variables there.
No,
you're assigning rules.
No, there's not.
Listen, you're assigning.
Under your logic, we should tell Michigan if they win the Big Ten championship and they go 12-1, you go to hell because we have to put Georgia in here because SEC, it means more.
No.
Is that what you're telling me?
No, my argument.
Okay, so Oklahoma State has to go to hell then if they win the Big 12. You're not one of the best if you can't win your conference.
That's nonsense. That's arbitrary. That's not true.
Okay, well then why don't we go what I just said? Why don't we go what I just said? We just won't play the conference championships at all.
Let me get this straight, then, guys.
People put these conference teams together. Why play them?
What did I call in for? Sure. What did I call in for? If I'm not given a chance to talk.
All right, well go ahead.
You're telling me the second place team in a conference can't be in the top 4 in the nation. That's impossible.
I'm saying that they don't deserve to be there. Yes. I'm saying if you can't, then why have the conference titles then? Why have conferences at all?
Here's the deal. Well, you're right. It's the problem is we have a certain system that we've had for a long time, and we're trying to create a playoff, which is more of an NFL system. We have too many teams and too many variables to really make it clean. You're right. The conference titles now become somewhat arbitrary. If they stick with the rule of the 4 best teams in the country, then that's the only clean way to do it.
All right, well, why are we yelling at each other when you and I agree that the conference titles either they mean something or they don't, right?
We don't agree because a bunch of the stuff that you said doesn't align with anything. I don't agree that a team that loses their conference title shouldn't ever have a chance in. I don't like that because as many problems as you solve with that, you're going to create more in other years. It doesn't make sense.
Okay,
not all conferences are created equal. Not all So but based on what you're saying an ACC champion deserves it over a team that's 12
I've not mentioned the ACC. I've mentioned the
I know you haven't, but I'm giving you that example.
Okay, well, I'm giving you the example of a one-loss team from the Big 12 and a one-loss team from the Big 10. And they're the conference champion. How do you put a team that has lost a game and it's their conference championship in over them? I don't get that. You're basically telling them that the season you played is crap.
There are 13 games in a season.
Sure.
One game, you look at more than just that 13th data point. There are 12 other games in the season, and you look at whose resume is best. It doesn't matter the ribbon at the end of the season in one game. What matters is who has played the best football from September through December, including that championship game.
That's all. What you're saying is that you're asking people to have the eye test for everyone. And in some ways that's fair, but you're basically saying we don't care what the conference championship is. We're just going to put this team in, period.
No, I didn't say it. You don't care what the conference championship. I mean, I care about the game.
Well,
but listen, as long as you subscribe to the 4 best teams in the country,
sure,
I'm fine with that. But that's not what you're saying.
But here's the problem, though. You're saying we need the 4 best teams in the country, but you're not exactly giving us a measuring stick other than I just think that Georgia has to be there because they play in the SEC. That's what
No,
you're
that's
giving
not what
me.
I said.
But that's what you're giving me.
I have always said the four best resumes.
Okay, well
no,
then,
I've said the four best.
What's
the
wrong?
four
What's wrong
best
with
resumes.
Michigan's resume?
You want to assign something else to the 13th game.
What's wrong with
What I'm saying
Michigan's
is
resume?
the resume, man.
What's wrong with Michigan's resume over Georgia? If Georgia loses this weekend and Michigan wins, no.
Everyone for 12 weeks.
I'm asking you, Michigan's schedule, if they win this weekend, they'll have better wins than Georgia has, better CFP wins than Georgia has. But we're supposed to tell Michigan, go away.
Than Georgia has, and they'll have a loss against Michigan State. I mean, yeah.
And Michigan State is a higher ranked team than any team that Michigan State is number 11 in the country, ranked higher than any team that Georgia has played this season. But we're supposed to say,
here's what you're talking. Hold on, you grasped one team that has an argument. Okay, so if Georgia loses in the championship,
why don't we? Do you want to go with Michigan? Oklahoma State? We can go with them too. There's two teams.
Yeah, we can go. Yeah, absolutely. That's
okay. Oklahoma State has wins over Baylor and Oklahoma. Those are better than any win that Georgia has. We should tell them, nope, Georgia, SEC, right?
Yeah, because you know why? Because they haven't been dominant all season.
But they beat better teams,
Missouri State by 7 points.
They beat better teams, Biscuit.
They beat Boise State by a point.
They beat better teams, Biscuit.
They beat Missouri State by 7. Do you honestly think the Big 12 is a comparison? Is a fair comparison?
I'm telling you from the rankings that I have that they have better wins than Georgia does, according to the rankings that I have in front of me.
Yes, but that's not the only criteria.
Okay, then what is the criteria?
Yeah, they do. Oklahoma and Baylor are better. I don't know about Baylor, but Oklahoma is a better win than any. I don't know. There's not enough there with Baylor. I mean,
look, I don't want to cut you off because I enjoyed the debate with you, and you were very respectful when you debate, and I appreciate that. But I really have to go to a break because I'm going to piss off everyone if I don't play these spots. All right. So thank you for calling, Biscuit.
right.
Thank you, buddy.
All right. Yeah, all right.
Biscuit joining the show. Very spirited debate. We always appreciate that here on the Rundown. More when we come back. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Good stuff, Biscuit. I appreciate it. No, my boss doesn't tell me to calm down. My boss actually tells me to turn it up. Yeah. But we have like our meetings or whatever where we'll do like air checks. My boss will tell me, turn it up. Remember, it's your show, which is funny. My God. You win, Jay. I don't think that. I think that you have to win your conference. That's all. And from what I've seen, I've got more better wins here for Oklahoma State. But good stuff. I appreciate the debate there, Biscuit. That's just funny, Jay. You're gonna make me curse on the air. You don't. There's no measuring stick, Biscuit. If you don't go by conference championships and you don't go by wins over ranked teams, then what do you go by? You did really good because you played a bunch of punks. Is that what we're supposed to go with? Come on, man. You can disagree. That's fine. Some people like big boobs. Some people like big butts. Whatever. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend. I'm looking forward to the Pac-12 tomorrow. I think that's going to be fun. Yes, but their ranked wins are not as good as Michigan or Oklahoma State. They're not. And I said the same thing then, SEC dog. Shouldn't have been there. Well, why don't you just play middle school teams in, Biscuit? We'll do that. Welcome back into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Getting ripped over here in the comments section. I will not say what Jay has said about me, but it's not very nice. Just go over and read it. It's a Fox Sports Radio Facebook page. You can follow along there. Anyway, I stand by what I said. You should win your conference title. If you don't win your conference title, and look, by the way, giving out my pick early, I do like Georgia to win this weekend. I think they should win. Now, if they Kirby Smart it up, and Nick Saban comes out and jumps on them in the first half, and they can't make adjustments in the second half, which is something that Kirby Smart has had issues with. If Kirby Smart learns how to coach in the second half, they'll win this weekend. I think they win anyway. Let's go out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Okay, let's talk Georgia. I know you guys can do it.
I've got a minute and 20 seconds. Go.
Okay, Georgia, yes, Georgia's a great team. But if you look at the end of week 13, what is Georgia's best victory? I don't care if I piss off Uncle Lou. And Georgia has only played their toughest road game this year has been at Tennessee. So, yes, Georgia's a great team, but I still think there's a little unproven, great defense. But we're going to see if they can beat their nemesis in Alabama this weekend. I mean, yes, Georgia's a better team, but Nick Saban will always have that team prepared in the SEC championship. So,
well, and it comes back to this too. Who would you want coaching your team? Would you rather have Kirby Smart or would you rather have Nick Saban? I'll take Nick
Saban every day.
Every day and twice on Sunday.
Yes, absolutely. And hopefully Uncle Lou comes in and tells us all we're idiots and Kirby Smart's got it.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right, bye-bye. Look, it's not I think Georgia has the better team, but you got to slay that demon that is Alabama. So there's that. So anyway, tomorrow we will have our picks against the spread. Working on getting a couple of other folks to join us as far as guests go. So there you go with that. 803-978-1832. Actually, I'm about out of time. I got about 30 seconds here. Lawton Swan is off today and tomorrow. He will be back with us on Monday, just in time to sort everything out. So be sure to check out his show, Clemson Sports Talk. Then he'll have Clemson Sports News on his website, clemsonsportstalk.com. Be sure to check that out. My name is Rob Sanders. Podcast for the show will be up at about 5 o'clock today. And as always, we appreciate you joining the show. And we'll be back at it tomorrow here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. I appreciate the debate today, guys. You guys have a great day. We'll see you later on. Good stuff today, Biscuit. I enjoy vibrant calls. Thank you for that.